So in the last 48 hours or so, actually 72 hours or so, we've learned that there is a new variant out there which has 50 mutations as compared to the 30 odd that the Delta has. It is really scaring scientists across the world. The WHO has very quickly termed it a variant of concern and has given it a new name. So it's now called the Omicron. And countries around the world are reacting to the Omicron more and more over the last few hours, have reported spotting people and tracing people with COVID-19 with this particular variant. They're blocking their borders to those who are coming in from South Africa and are being criticized for that as well. But the question is the Omicron deadlier than the Delta? Will the vaccines that the world now at least has, will they be effective against the Omicron? And that really is the big question. First, let's listen in to what the World Health Organization has said today.
We shouldn't need another wake-up call. We should all be wide awake to the threat of this virus. But Omicron's very emergence is another reminder that although many of us might think we're done with COVID-19, it's not done with us. We're living through a cycle of panic and neglect. Hard-won gains could vanish in an instant. Our most immediate task, therefore, is to end this pandemic.
Telling words there from the World Health Organization chief. We may think that we are done with COVID-19, but it's not done with us. And that really reflects, in a sense, what is happening in India right now, where people have moved on. You're seeing less people wear masks. Infections have been steadying at around 10,000 a day, which in a country the size of India is much lesser than what it is before. We've been talking about COVID becoming endemic, and now you get this new variant. What does it really mean? On the show today, I have Dr. N.K Arora, Chair of the COVID Sub-Committee of NTAGI, Dr. Srivastava, who's a member of the COVID-19 Task Force for Maharashtra, and Dr. Arvinder Soin, Chairman of the Medanta Liver Institute. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us. Dr. Arora, let me first begin by getting your view on the Omicron. From what we know so far, is it seeming, from the symptoms that are being described by South African doctors, that this may not be as deadly as was being feared even 24 hours ago?
So, in fact, you have given the background of the enormous number of mutations on this virus. And so there are three types of concern. One is transmissibility or the infectiousness. The second is severity of disease or virulence. And third is effectiveness of currently available vaccines. So in terms of infectiousness, certainly in a matter of 1 or 2 weeks, in and around Pretoria, the virus has replaced Delta virus. So its growth potential is very high, or infectiousness is very high. So there is no doubt about that. But exactly how much, how many times, I think in coming weeks, we will come to know it better. The second is virulence part. Now, the severity issue is not so well clarified, although general feeling among clinicians and the medical chief medical officer of South Africa has said that the disease is milder, but simultaneously their hospitals, ICUs and ventilators are becoming fuller by the day. So one has to really look at the data or wait for more information, whether it is like Delta or more virulent or less virulent. But overall, the general principle is any virus which wants to survive, this is nature's principle. Very virulent viruses don't survive. So viruses which do not have a very high killing propensity do not survive themselves. So let's wait. And the third dimension is the effectiveness of the vaccine. And again, the information is limited or practically no information on that how the current vaccines will work. But one thing is certain, the way it is moving, it is an immune escape. So whether somebody is previously infected, that means, or not infected, or previously immunized, the virus seems to attack all of them. So the information is still filtering in. As you rightly said, last 24 hours also some more information has come. So, but here I will put a word of caution from an Indian perspective, that we should not get panicky. First of all, the reason is also that we have a double protection. Most of us have got vaccines after the decline of the second wave. So we got infected and now we are getting our vaccine regular doses, primary doses. So that way vaccine becomes more effective. And more recent, in last 1 month or 6 weeks, whatever sero surveys have been done, children seem to be positive around 80%, which is a proxy for natural infection in our population, because children and adults are very similarly infected. So this kind of background epidemiology would, how it will work out, but I think it will certainly not be so ferocious as the second wave was.
Well, that's what everyone's hope is. Dr. Arora, how are we ensuring that India is safe? So, of course, we are vaccinating people rapidly, and I think 80% of the adult population has got one dose. But there are still, in absolute numbers, a significant portion and significant number of people who have not been vaccinated. Do the vulnerable or the immunocompromised now need an additional dose? Do you think that we are being strict enough in ensuring it does not enter, or tracing if the virus is already here? And several countries of the world have reported that the virus has entered. We are saying there's no official confirmation yet. Are we being thorough enough?
So, all of us are aware that a lot of proactive and preemptive steps have been taken during last 72 hours. And right at the apex, leadership is leading the whole exercise. So whether point of entry, international travels, and similarly, genomic surveillance has been further strengthened, and the time interval between somebody becoming RT-PCR positive and sequencing has been reduced to less than a week or so that we quickly get the sequence. So we should be under no illusion that virus will not enter, because whatever is done, the only thing is, when the virus is entering, we pursue it aggressively and contain it. That would, and we have now 1.5 years of rich experience how to understand that. So we are working on that. The second thing is that there have been suggestions that even asymptomatic or totally normal individuals coming from at-risk countries will be all screened for RT-PCR, because many of the COVID individuals, in fact, bulk of the COVID individuals are asymptomatic but may still be carrying the virus. So that process has also been put in place for travelers coming from these places. Third thing is that our health system is prepared. Last 4 or 5 months have not been been in complacency. We have oxygen plants all over the country. All district hospitals have oxygen plants. ICU beds have been increased, and ventilator beds are now almost 100,000 ventilator beds across the country. So health system is also prepared in case of any exigency. But overall, we have to be careful. And as you very rightly mentioned, our best bet at the moment is following the corona appropriate behavior very religiously, and simultaneously vaccines. About 12 to 15 crore people have yet to receive their first dose. And this Har Ghar Dastak program is going on for last 4 weeks. And we hope that people will come forward, all those living in remote areas, inaccessible areas, and those who fear losing a day's wage, and so that all days can be covered. The second is that those who are due for second dose, they should also come. Overall, vaccine hesitancy is being addressed by a 1-to-1 marking at village level as well as at the urban ward level. The health workers are aware who have got the vaccine and who are reluctant to get the vaccine. And so interpersonal communication is taking place so that we reach every individual. And the overall objective, like polio program, is to vaccinate nearly 100%. At
Dr. Om Srivastav, at this stage, do you think that India is better positioned relatively because of the awful second wave and the huge amount of suffering we saw in March, April and May actually of this year? And that has in a way made sure that we may be able to withstand the new virus and the new variant? Or is that a fool's paradise? Because this one now has changed so much, it's probably not even resembling the original virus anymore.
So, thank you for having me on your show. Your question is in two parts. Have we learned enough in the last wave to be able to be ready for something like this? I hope so. Certainly, I hope so, because the wealth of information that we have gathered in the last, 8 to 9, 10 months has given us the wherewithal to make a strategy for something like this. Now, this is a totally novel kind of a variant of the virus, and that is going to require a novel strategy. It's not going to be something that you did in the first wave or the second wave. So yes, there will need to be a different strategy. There will need to be a strategy that will look at screening, not limiting of passengers, but certainly screening them. Anybody who's had any international travel in the last 14 days will need to be observed, screened, kept in isolation for a little while, such that they are then going to be, once they are negative only, then they come into the community. So the answer to your question is that I hope we've learned. We're certainly far richer in our experience in the last about 10 months time from the second wave. All the stories that individually, as clinicians or even paramedical staff, nurses, all the people concerned in patient care, as well as doctors or people who are policy writers, everybody would have learned, and that hopefully when a policy for this variant Omicron is written, it should be covering all the things that we probably didn't know at the time the second wave started, or that we were probably not anticipating something as grievous as this coming our way. So yes, I certainly hope that all the things that are being said about this virus turn out to be, well, either wrong or a possible overestimation. But we will know about all of these things in the next, at least, I think we'll need to wait for at least a couple of weeks, maybe a little bit longer, 3 or 4 weeks, but not less than a couple of weeks. But we'll certainly know by the end of December, early January, as to where we stand with this virus.
The problem is that the virus will spread at a much faster pace than we have as humanity to figure out what exactly it does. And Dr. Soin, is that the big concern? That, of course, we have covered a large part of our population with a single dose, but double dose needs to be given more aggressively. The elderly and the more vulnerable do not yet have additional shots or booster shots here in India like they have in other parts of the world. Do you think we need to start thinking in those lines now?
Well, it's absolutely true that the data that we need to ascertain the true nature of this variant is going to take a while to accumulate and come through. But clearly the transmissibility and the severity of the disease and whether it actually causes deaths is going to be pretty apparent in the next 15, 20 days. Because as it affects more people, it'll be quite easy to understand what proportion of the new infections are because of this variant. And I mean, so far, the African doctors haven't actually had a tough time managing these patients. They think that most of them get mild fatigue and body aches, and they're actually not seeing, the loss of taste and smell and drop in oxygen saturation as much as they did with the Delta virus. So it's possible that it's a milder form, but it's all going to unfold in the next 15 days. Yes, the effectiveness of the vaccine is going to take a long time for us to understand. But, the PCR test is able to detect this. So although there are 30 plus variations in the spike protein region, there is enough reason to believe that it is basically still the same virus, because there are literally thousands of genes in that region and 30 plus are mutated. So it is possible that it's not going to have a vaccine escape, or it's going to escape vaccine immunity. So let's not be, as has been rightly said before, let's not panic, and let's not kind of go into a complete shutdown mode. But yes, travel restrictions and surveillance of all incoming travelers is an absolute must. It's better to be safe than sorry. But we can always undo these after a few weeks when we get to know the true nature of the beast. So that's where I stand on this. And of course, COVID appropriate behavior, double vaccination, and consideration of boosters for the older population, those with comorbidity, and the healthcare workers is definitely on the cards.
Dr. Arora, to come to you on the question of vaccine for children and boosters or additional shots, you have been giving interviews today and making statements on this as the head of the COVID panel. Do you think we need to move on this faster now? You've said that in another 2 weeks the picture would be clearer. But has the priority sort of shifted from covering everyone once at least to securing those who are most vulnerable? And what about the children?
So, children, I'll take children dimension first. And as right in the beginning, I mentioned that most of our children also are infected. They have got natural infection, and recent surveys are showing up to 80% of our children have zero antibodies or zero positive, which indicates exposure to virus already. Otherwise, also, we know that the symptomatic disease is very less. Severe disease and death is extremely uncommon. And within India, of all the deaths, only 0.1% of deaths below 10 years are, of all the COVID deaths are less than 10 years. And between 10 and 20 years, it is about 0.4 or 0.5%. Overall, so the disease severity is not something which is of concern. And the second thing is of natural. Having said that, children are our very important aspect of life. They will be immunized. There is a comprehensive program going to be announced, and there will be prioritization for children also. And we have a healthy vaccine pipeline for children. Zycov-D is already there. There have been some supply constraints for Zycov-D. Covaxin has also been approved for 3 to 18 years. And 2 more pediatric vaccines, Carbovax and Covax, for children 5 to 18 years is also on the anvil, and they will be available. But having said that, our first priority is saving our adults. Throughout this life cycle of pandemic, we have seen it is adults who are at the kind of front of bearing the brunt of the disease, and they have to be saved and they have to be protected. And that's why we are working on this issue of immunizing, giving primary immunization to all. And we have a still sizable population who have not received even single dose. Second thing is our own vaccine manufacturer and international vaccine manufacturers, mRNA vaccine manufacturers, have started working on a modified vaccine, which, if required, can then be used as booster. So we must understand, we must get the information. At this time, if this vaccine, this particular virus is completely escaping the immune response of the current vaccines, then it is this modified vaccine which will be required. Till that time, our only protection is that we give at least primary doses to our population.
No, so Dr. Arora, 1 minute. This is an important statement. Can I just reconfirm this? Are you saying that currently, Bharat Biotech and of course the Serum Institute of India with their partners are working on a vaccine which could possibly work against the Omicron if required? Am I understanding this correctly?
No, you're not. I said mRNA and DNA vaccines are the only vaccines which can quickly bring about change in the vaccine composition. And India has the advantage of this DNA vaccine, which is the easiest. It is a plug and play technology, so that they can, all these two platforms, mRNA and DNA platforms, have suggested that in about 100 days they can come up with the new vaccine.
So what about the efficacy of the vaccines we have right now? Are we checking that? Are we testing that?
Yes.
Most of the population has been vaccinated with Covishield, some with Covaxin. Do we know if these stand up against this new variant?
This is just 1 week old story. So as Arvinder said, we have to wait at least for 2 to 3 weeks before we get further information on vaccine effectiveness. We have to have the virus with us and then start checking for it. So, and then those who have been infected by this to look at the antibodies. So at the moment, it will take at least 2 to 4 weeks to see the vaccine effectiveness. And I think it cannot be short, because that period is required. And in fact, I've given to understand several labs across the world, including in India, are already started evaluating the immune response to existing vaccines with the new virus.
All right. So we'll hopefully have more clarity in a few days from now. Thank you so much, Dr. Arora, Dr. Soin and Dr. Srivastava for joining us on this important discussion today as we try and wrap our heads over what's happening without panicking. Keep the facts clear, keep the information first, and we should hopefully get through this as well.